How do you get involved in politics? Well, let me count the ways. You are in the right place if you'd like to know the answer to that question. I'm going to tell you the how, the why, what to do when you get there. Stay with me. What we're going to talk about in this video are 4 time-tested ways to get involved in a political campaign, 4 time-tested rules to abide once you get there, and how to use the experience to launch a political career of your own. Let's first talk about one of the 4 ways that you get involved in a political campaign. Go online in your community 6 months before an election. Look around, look at the websites of the candidates that are running in your community. Look at the offices that are going to be contested in your community. Look at the websites of the candidates and figure out which ones you like and which ones you don't like, and pick out 2 or 3 that you really like whose cause you're comfortable advancing. Now, a little hint here. Pick one that has a competitive election coming. Why? Because there's going to be a lot more to do. And why? Because they're likely to have something that you can do that it's useful. And here's the truth. In most countries, there are elections that are a foregone conclusion before anybody casts a vote. You want to work in a campaign where it's not a foregone conclusion, where every vote counts. You'll have a lot more fun. If you cannot find a candidate that you love, why, go look at the political parties in your community and volunteer to get involved. Now, what do political parties do? They organize rallies for their candidates. They send precinct committee people and volunteers out to go door to door, knocking on doors for their slate of candidates. They help candidates get on the ballot by circulating petitions and gathering signatures so that they meet the ballot placement requirements. They have monthly meetings where they discuss policy, who needs help, what can be done in their community, initiatives that that party could take that improves their brand in that community. It is not for everyone, but it is a viable way to get involved in politics if you can't find a particular candidate that suits your fancy. Third way to do it is to get involved in what we call a cause-driven organization. What good does that do you? It's because cause-driven organizations are trying to influence public opinion. They are trying to initiate a solution to a problem. They're trying to right a wrong. They're trying to advance a cause. They're trying to build a movement. Organizations like that are inherently political, and they also attract very politically minded people who are in the business of shaping public opinion. And it is a great way to meet people who are politically involved, savvy in how it's been done. And by the way, I've known many candidates who used their association with a cause-driven organization, whether it was helping the homeless, building housing for the needy, Habitat for Humanity, who've used that to advance a political career and create a circle of influential people who help them get that campaign off the ground. Okay, so we've covered finding a candidate you like. We talked about getting involved in the party organization. We've talked about joining a cause-driven organization. There's a 4th category, and they're called community service organizations. A little less political, but the benefits are similar to being involved in a cause-driven organization. And I'll tell you a story about a candidate I once knew. He wasn't a candidate at the time, but he wanted to be. And his community was going to have a United Way campaign to raise money for United Way. United Way was a prominent service organization in that community. And he said, I'll lead the fundraising campaign. He volunteered for it. Well, on the day they started the fundraising campaign, they erected this big sign on the courthouse square announcing the initiation of this campaign. They had a little thermometer there with a little red thing at the bottom, and that day it was really close to the bottom, the thermometer, but this was promoting the idea that this community was going to come together and raise money for United Way, which served the poor people in that community. Now, he didn't stop there. Each week, for weeks on end, they would have the same press conference at the same time, surrounded by a group of people. And each week, the thermometer was rising on the sign, and he was talking about the progress that they had made and the enthusiasm. Or he would feature a group of people who were going to be helped by the United Way campaign. Now, in the meantime, you know what else he was doing? He was talking with every influential person, every attorney, every business owner, every professional in that community about donating to the United Way campaign. And you know what he learned in that process? Is almost everybody in that community that had money to give. The United Way campaign was a resounding success. They raised more money in that campaign than they ever had before. Lots of service organizations got lots of help because of his efforts. The next year, he decided to run for the state senate. Having made all of those friendships with people associated with that United Way campaign, all of the friendships he had developed with people who gave money to that United Way campaign, a Democrat in a rural area, and he won an election because they appreciated his leadership and his work in helping an organization that benefited everybody in the community. That is a fourth way to get involved in politics. They're all valid, they're all useful, they will all serve your cause well. Okay, that's one way to get your foot in the door. Now, what do you do when you get there? There are just a few rules of behavior I'm going to suggest to you once you're inside the door of one of these entities. One is that always be well-dressed and well-groomed. You know, if you walk into a room, people judge you and make judgments about you before a single word comes out of your mouth. You only get one chance to create a good first impression, and it takes forever to correct a bad one. So it's just basic. Make sure your clothes fit. Make sure your clothes are clean when you're in public. Look like someone who looks like they're worth talking to. Because if you don't, you'll tend to be ignored, or they'll judge you before they know anything about your talents, and you'll lose out. That is just a basic rule of being a volunteer if you want to rise through the food chain. Second thing is be quick to volunteer for any task that needs to be done. If you're in a headquarters or an organization, or you say you need to set up chairs for a rally, or you need to take the lead in putting up the bunting, don't sit there and wait for somebody else to do it. Take the initiative, get involved when you see people who need help. Offer a helping hand. Now, weird story, but yes, I have used ChatGPT. I don't use it to write these videos. I just use it to ask it questions. But the funny thing about that ChatGPT is every time I ask for something and she answers, her last question is, "What else can I do for you today? Or do you have yet another question for me? Please put it in." It is the best assistant I have ever had, and the one thing that I so appreciate is she's always willing to go the extra mile. You be that kind of volunteer. Here's another rule. I'm just going to mention this, and here's another rule that you really should follow that I'm going to mention in passing. Do not complain about being asked to do something because you think it's beneath your dignity. You know what? They'll never ask you to do something you want to do. I've had in political campaigns had to ask volunteers to leave because they were destructive. All they did is complain about the way things were, or why something wasn't going to their satisfaction, or how they were inconvenienced by something, or somebody else that didn't do something they were supposed to do, or complaining because there was no Pepsi in the refrigerator. Don't do it. Nobody likes it. It doesn't get you anywhere. It will get you an invitation to go do something else outside the campaign. So do what you're asked to do. Put on your happy face even when you don't feel like it. You work hard at making friends, and you work just as hard at keeping friends. I've been doing this 45 years. I still got friends from the very first campaign I was ever involved with. You're involved here with people who enjoy politics. The people you are associated with, if they get bitten by the political bug, are going to spend their life in politics one way or another, either helping candidates advance a cause. They may go on to be professionals in this line of work. You're meeting people who have talents, who are going to develop those talents, who are going to become very influential leaders in their field. Become friends, and then work just as hard as staying in touch with them. Never let a friendship grow cold. If you keep them alive, and you someday decide to run for election yourself, those friends are going to make all the difference in the world. While this video is fresh in your mind, I'm going to suggest you watch another one. The title of it is What You Get by Volunteering in a Political Campaign. We go into a much deeper dive about the benefits to you. Go watch it now. The link is in the description below this video.